Hi. So tell me, what was the food that you chose? Hi. Hello. Hi. Hi. So tell me, what was the food that you chose to eliminate this week? How's it going? Hi. Today we're going to talk about how to quit sugar. We can make new choices. Now, I wish I could tell you that quitting sugar is one and done. But I will tell you from my own personal experience that it's a topic that I have to revisit on a regular basis. And it really helps to have support in order to do so. I know for myself that I will successfully get off sugar and I can be off sugar and have been for years. But then something happens, usually a birthday cake that I make for one of my kids ends up in licking my finger during making it, having some batter, having a few chocolate chips, having a slice of cake the next day, wanting another slice of cake, having another slice of cake, and it keeps going. And it can go unchecked. For me, sugar is probably, maybe coffee too, probably the only thing that I'm addicted to. I find it exceedingly difficult to restrain myself once I have gotten on the sugar train. So, unfortunately, it's not one and done, but with support, I'm going to help you to get off sugar. I'm also getting off sugar as well. So, the first step is making a decision. For me, and many of the women that I work with, actually coming around to the decision part is a lot of the work. Once we've made the commitment and we have the support that we need to in order to make changes in our life, we can step forward into our new habits. Okay. But deciding and committing come first. Okay. Now, the good news is that the cravings will reach a peak and then kind of spiral back down. And it takes really only about 3 days. So if you can do it, and then if you can keep it up for a couple of weeks and make the habit stick, then you're in the clear for at least some time until you get back on the train again. Okay, so here are some tips for getting off sugar. The first tip that I have for all of our self care and food is being prepared. The more prepared we are to fuel ourselves with good quality nutrients, the less we're going to be grabbing food on the run, which ultimately leads to eating more processed food, which, as you know, I explained in our last sugar talk, is filled with lots of sugar and also high fructose corn syrup, has very little fiber, does not satisfy us. Okay. The second tip I have is to cook at home. So when you're cooking at home, you know what's in your food. You bought it, you've prepared it. If you could find a way to love cooking, I highly recommend that you try to, because um, the whole process of preparing your food can be a very sacred way of honoring yourself and also honoring Mother Nature's bounty. Okay. Tip number three, eat real food. Eat real food that is natural and unprocessed. You will find yourself far more satisfied if you eat real food. You will also find yourself not having to worry about weight gain. Tip number four, eat whole grains. I know there's a lot of low carb. I was paleo myself for years because I have celiac and I have a child who has a grain intolerance. Um, I know that keto is all the rage, but you know what? Just eat whole grains. When you eat whole grains, you have the energy you need to sustain your day. You don't have cravings. They're delicious and they're not expensive. Next tip, read the labels. This is something I'm trying to teach my children right now because when you start reading the labels, first of all, my mother had this rule growing up. If the label has ingredients that are this long, just put it back on the shelf. Forget it. Okay. You want as few, if you're going to choose food that has been processed in any way, choose food that has fewer ingredients, number one. Number two, look for these terms because all these terms equal added sugar. Obviously, sugar, dextrose, maltose, glucose, fructose, corn sweetener, honey, corn syrup, sucrose, sour gum syrup, sorbitol, brown sugar, lactose, molasses, syrup, fruit juice concentrate, high fructose corn syrup. Any of those equal sugar. Okay? Start to become familiar with what you're eating by reading the labels. Another really good tip, and this is one that I do because it makes it easier for my kids and myself if we just keep sugar out of the house. So I don't keep even fruit juice in the house. The only thing that I have that's sweet in the house really is probably honey and syrup. And those are for my kids. But keeping it out of the house makes it easier on yourself when you are having a craving or when you're in a stressful moment and you feel like you're going to reach for the sugar. Okay. You know, that being said, you can plan your indulgence. You're going on vacation and you know that there's going to be that awesome place that makes homemade gelato. You plan for that indulgence. Delay your gratification, plan for the indulgence. You can also, next tip, substitute different foods. And I'll tell you a trick that I do when I'm trying to get off sugar. I keep something called coconut mana, which is almost like coconut butter. It's from the meat of the coconut. And it is one particular brand that I love is Artisan. And it's organic. And it's because it's fatty, it has high satiety. So I'm not going to be compelled to eat spoon after spoon of this stuff, but it is naturally sweet without any added sugar. So it kind of helps me. That's like my go-to if I'm really craving it hard. I can have a spoon of that. I've even done it with peanut butter because peanut butter has a natural sweetness too. Also, an apple. Um, so if I'm looking for that sweetness, I try to find a substitute that doesn't have added sugar. Another thing that you can do is to substitute an activity. So when you're feeling the urge come on for something sweet, and I know that when I'm addicted to sugar, I'm always trying to find it at the same time of day. Like, so for instance, if I had a sweet after dinner the night before, the following day after dinner, I will be jonesing for a sweet. So what I can do instead is make a decision to do a different activity rather than eating and perhaps go for a walk, perhaps water my garden, perhaps call a friend, hold a pet. These are all different ideas. So today, your task is you have two tasks today. Your first task is to make a plan. And I want you to make this plan and stick to it, something that you can stick to. What are you going to do when you crave sugar? Are you going to choose a substitute food or are you going to choose a substitute activity? So that's number one, make a plan. Number two, today you will be choosing a consistent bedtime that you are going to try to get to bed the same time every night. We're trying to build little tiny habits towards sleep hygiene, and this is the first one that I'm going to ask you to do. So I want you to record what you're going to do when you have a craving today and what time of evening you are going to get to sleep each night. All right. See you tomorrow.